The invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 was planned by the Russians to give them a quick victory, even taking the capital Kyiv within days. How wildly wrong were their calculations and tactics, and how strong the resistance from the Ukrainian forces then and now. This heroic struggle against Russian oppression continues, at a huge cost in military and civilian lives, devastating communities and creating unprecedented hardship. Alleviating that hardship is now the most important work for the Cork charity, the Greater Chernobyl Cause. Governments, agencies and charities around the world have responded. The Greater Chernobyl Cause is no exception, drawing on its long and impressive record working in Ukraine. The charity, formed in the wake of the world's worst nuclear disaster, has worked there with street children, cancer patients, the homeless and addicted, and the very young stricken with TB.
The base of the bed is simply it's a rough, worn, rusty coil, which is almost collapsed at the moment. And then we've got the mattress, which seems to be like an eiderdown sewn into some material. And it's obviously very uncomfortable for the children to sleep in. There are 56 children in the hospital. We must replace all of the beds, because I think the children are suffering enough with TB and their other illnesses.
Can I just show you 1 second, like the children's disability aids, right?
Now, as the war grinds on, Charity Director Fiona Corcoran is concentrating her efforts on improving the lives of the most vulnerable and war-weary, still stranded in Ukraine. There could be more than 6 million unable to leave for safety in the rest of Europe. An humanitarian aid effort supported enthusiastically in Cork by Lord Mayor Deirdre Ford and local businessman William O'Brien. Here, supplies donated in Ireland, collected and loaded by volunteers, are destined for the Slovakian border with Ukraine.
You can see there's a vast amount of aid here today, and that's been compiled and donated by our schools and our donations right around the country. And then we've got our new clothes, very warm clothes. You've got hot water bottles, you've got like tents, you've got like sleeping bags, you've got like little gas cookers, everything that you can actually think of that's actually needed for our refugees that are leaving their war-torn cities.
Thankfully, we're in a position today to send some much needed surgical and life-saving equipment to Ukraine. You have an already packaged ultrasound machine, and we've got 2 of these, which have been kindly sponsored by the Bon Secours Hospital here in Cork. We also have 2 anaesthetic machines, which are very badly needed by the current health departments in Ukraine, and with all the humanitarian crisis that they're dealing with at the moment.
These are donations made against a background of the Russian threat to use winter as an additional weapon in the conflict by damaging water and electricity supplies. There are now regular power cuts and blackouts across the country, and that's serious in Ukraine, where harsh winters can last right through from October to April. The most urgent task for the Greater Chernobyl Cause as war broke out was to join with its charity partners in Ukraine and help with the enormous tide of refugees. Street kitchens and welfare centres sprang up, devoted to feeding and comforting the many thousands uprooted by the Russian bombardment. As the invasion began, safer cities like Lviv in the far west of the country had to absorb a vast wave of terrified humanity. Fiona was determined to offer help to the penniless mothers and children desperate to leave the country.
Millions and millions of people left their bombarded homes and cities, children, mothers, grandparents and the infirm. They arrived here in Lviv and again tumbling down these steps. And here organisations like ourselves were able to provide accommodation, food, medical intervention, counselling and then transport on the way to different countries to find sanctuary and safety. Many of these people are now refugees in our country in Ireland, which we support.
The devastation of parts of Ukraine is thought to have forced up to 8 million people, largely women and children, to flee the country. But not everyone had the money and physical powers to leave destruction behind and make the daring and complicated journey to Europe. Thousands of innocent civilians fled Kharkiv, Ukraine's second city, mercilessly attacked during the early stages of the war, and made for the remote surrounding countryside with little more than the fragments of their shattered lives. Sirens punctuate the serenity, often twice a day in this vulnerable region close to the Russian border. After the warnings come the power cuts and blackouts, adding to the privations in a poor and isolated area. Here there is relative safety, but no prospect of employment, let alone adequate roads, public transport, reliable water, food or power supplies. It is to neglected communities like this that the Greater Chernobyl Cause is now directing its efforts and trying to improve desperate lives. Valery is a sad but unfortunately very common example here in the village of Novy Merchik. He escaped Kharkiv with his family but now lives in squalor as he attempts to scratch a living.
Проживаю тут з бабушкою. Коли почалися обстріли в Харкові, я її сюди перевіз. Це батьківщина. І тут доглядаю. Бабушки 95 років з половиною. Ну так оце й живемо. Трошки огорода держимо, пасіку, якось виживаємо. Пенсія маленька, так що приходиться трудитися хоч якось, щоб вижити.
Ola is in a similar situation, here with her frail and elderly parents in a home quite unsuited to their needs. Crammed into a summer house, they try and keep body and soul together with little protection from the winter.
Важко, дуже важко. Потрібні нам і памперси, потрібні нам і генератора хоча б підігріти, чи зарядити світло, щоб було. Тут же павербанк, тут же ж телефон. Хоч би один на село дали.
There's a huge reliance on logs to heat homes and stoves, so generators can obviously make a difference here. Prayers seem to have been answered, though, by Fiona, with the arrival of a generator to be shared with the neighbours, bringing heat and light into some cold homes and difficult lives. The local school in Novy Merchik has just received one. The gift will mean the building can function as the community bomb shelter and hub 24/7 and invite families and children in more regularly.
Коли ви станете дорослими, ви будете приїжджати додому і
Online teaching continues for over 100 children during the war. However, here there are special art therapy classes to help refugee children forced to witness the horrors of war.
Hello. Привіт. Hello. How are you? Good. Fiona. How are you?
Погано чують.
A chance to add to badly needed supplies as life here returns to something resembling normality. What could have been further from any idea of care for the elderly than being trapped inside your nursing home by invading Russian troops? That was the crisis here 2 years ago in Pribisk. Of the 30 residents, 15 are bedridden.
This is a place for people who cannot look after themselves, the bedridden and those with disabilities. A place for those who need constant care around the clock.
We're quite saddened to see that there are 30 people living there, 15 people bedridden. So the urgent need that we must supply is 15 specialised beds. And we're speaking about wheelchairs for bathing people. And then very important also is a dishwasher, because 30 people and everything is being washed by hand. We need a water filtering system, we need an industrial wheel hoover, and simple things like pull-ups as in adult nappies, because again, think of the people who are laying in the beds every single day.
Thanks to the Greater Chernobyl Cause and its charity partners, many of those needs are being addressed. There have been recent deliveries of a water filtering system, modern computers for use by the staff, and now televisions in every room. But so much more has to be done for the elderly in Pribisk and across war-torn Ukraine. If you feel you can help the many trapped and unable to leave the country, a donation, however small, will make a difference. Thank you.